Today we're going to finish Unit 6, dealing with the law of cosines. Now, law of cosines, there's really several options for you. There's three options, but notice in each case, whatever angle you have here, you put its opposite side over here. So it really boils down to this. Whatever angle you put here, you put the opposite sides here. And then the two sides that you happen to know, your adjacent side 1 would go here and here. Adjacent side 2, the other one would go here and here. So whether you want to use the ones with A, B, and C or the general one is really a personal preference. Now, you'll notice down here in using law of sines, once again, we cannot use the Pythagorean theorem and cannot use SOHCAHTOA because it's not a right triangle. We cannot use law of sines because we don't have an opposite pair. So we're going to use our law of cosines. Now, we can't find any angles at this point, so we'd have to find side k, which is lowercase k, opposite angle k. So with law of cosines, you have a side squared equaling a side squared plus the other side squared minus 2 times your side sine, or side cosine of whatever angle you're dealing with. So if you know your angle, which is 61 degrees, the side opposite goes on the opposite side of the equal sign. Then your adjacent sides go here, and then your other adjacent side, 24, goes here. Now to get k by itself, all we have to do is go ahead and get rid of the squaring. To undo squaring, we do the square root. We could go ahead and work out the right side, but type it into your calculator just as you see it. And then it saves you from multiple typing it in. So go square root 8 squared plus 24 squared minus 2 times 8 times 24 times cosine 61, then hit enter. And well, if you just type it in all at once and then hit enter like that, you get 21.3. So if this is 21.3, you'll notice that we now have an opposite pair, so we can use law of sines. Could you use law of cosines again to be able to get your missing angles? Yes, but law of sines is often going to be easier. Now, which angle you go to and find next really doesn't make a difference. I'm going to go ahead and do P. So since I'm looking for sine of angle P, I'm going to put the sine of P in top over its opposite side equals that opposite pair that I know. The sine of the angle I know over the side that we just figured out. And now to get P by itself, I got to undo dividing by 8. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 8. Now, if you want, you could type in that right-hand side, get a decimal approximation, take it out at least 4 places. Now to get P by itself, we have to undo sine, and remember that that's that sine inverse. So go sine inverse of that decimal that you just got from your calculator. You type that into your handy-dandy calculator, and you get 19.2 degrees. So now that we have two angles, we know our third angle, we can just go 180 degrees minus the angles that we had. So to find H, just go 180 degrees minus your given angle, minus the angle that we just figured out. Type that in, and we get H to be 99.8 degrees. Remember, if you want to have something representing an angle in degrees, you have to put down the degree symbol. Okay, so now on this one, you're not given any angles. So therefore, we can't use law of sines because we don't have an opposite pair. We can use law of cosines. But if you're not giving any angles, then you have to find your largest angle first. There's some minor things that you can run into if you don't do that. So remember from geometry, your largest angle is opposite your largest side. So here's your largest side. It's going to be opposite your largest angle. So when we're using law of cosine, side squared equals side squared plus side squared minus 2 times your side cosine of your angle, we're going to be looking for our largest angle. So I'll put that there. The opposite side goes on the opposite side of the equal sign. And then we could put in our adjacent side. So an 11.9 and our other one of 10.5. So this one isn't quite as easy, but it's still doable to work out. So I'm going to work out 12.9 squared, and I get 166.41 is equal to. Now I'm going to go ahead and type these two in, put them together. And when I do that, typing it in, I get 151.86 minus, type in what's in front of my cosine, and I get 249.9 cosine of my angle of A. Now notice, I am not able to put these numbers here together because that second number is attached to my cosine. They're not like terms. I can't put them together. So I need to go ahead and subtract this from both sides to try to end up working backwards to solve this. So when I do that, on the left, I get a negative 85.45, still equal to that stuff over by the cosine. Well, now I got to go ahead and undo the multiplying by that number in front of my cosine. So divide both sides by that. And take it out at least 4 decimal points. Get 0.3419 is equal to the cosine of A. Now remember, to get rid of the cosine, to get A by itself, you have to do cosine inverse. So go cosine inverse, which is second cosine, type in 0.3419, you type that in, you get 70.0 degrees. So we now have our first angle. Now that we have an opposite pair on our triangle, it's what's in blue, we could use law of sines. Whichever angle you go to next is really a personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and find angle C, so I'll go sine of C over the side opposite of that of 11.9 equals, and then I'll go the sine of the angle I just found, which is 70 degrees, over the side opposite that. Then get rid of the divide by 11.9, so multiply both sides by 11.9. I'm going to type the whole right-hand side into my calculator all at once. Take it out at least 4 decimal points. Then to get C by itself, I'm going to go sine inverse of both sides. So go sine inverse, type in that decimal that you just got, and you get angle C to be 60.0 degrees. So then to find side or angle B, remember you can just go 180 minus the two angles you just found, and in this case we get angle B to be 50 degrees. So here the first thing I would do is to draw my triangle. So I'm going to take my angle, put it over here, and then this will be one of my sides next to my angle, because you know this one over here is A, which we don't know, we're not given that. I'm going to go ahead and choose to put B down here in the bottom for no real apparent reason, and I'm going to put C up here in this side right here. So you notice we have our blue angle directly in between two sides, so it's a side angle side, so we know it's only one triangle. So we can just go ahead and use law of cosines. We cannot use SOHCAHTOA or Pythagorean theorem because it's not a right triangle. We can't use law of sines because we don't have an opposite pair. So I'm going to go ahead and try to find my opposite of my angle. So I'll go a squared is equal to my adjacent squared plus adjacent squared minus 2 times adjacent. Adjacent cosine of the only angle I have. And so I'm going to go ahead and put my one adjacent side here and here. My other adjacent side, nope, I did that backwards. Wrong color. There we go. 22, 22, and then put my other adjacent side here and here. Now, once again, to get a by itself, I just have to undo the squaring. So I'm going to do the square root and type in that whole right-hand side all at once. So type in square root, then inside your root go 22 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 22 times 15 times cosine of 87, typing it into your handy-dandy calculator, and we get this. So now we get an opposite pair. We can switch over to law of sines. Now, whichever angle you find next, B or C, doesn't make a difference. I'm going to go sine of B, because I like to have what I'm looking for on top, over side B, equals the sine of the angle of my opposite pair over the side opposite, which is 26. And then to solve it for B, I got to get rid of dividing by 22, so multiply both sides by 22. And then do sine of B, type in that whole right-hand side, get a nice decimal, at least 4 places, and then get rid of the sign. You have to do sine inverse and do sine inverse of that whole decimal you just got. And then you can type that into your handy-dandy calculator. You get 57.7 degrees. Then remember to find your third angle. You can just subtract the two angles from 180, and you get angle C to be 35.3 degrees. So pause and read through this. Now, when you read through this, you have strides and paces. Now, if you didn't know the difference, here's a diagram. We have our pace, which is the angle or the distance between the opposite feet as you're walking, and we know that that's 1.8 and 1.8. And then our stride is how far apart 1 foot moves from one spot to the next step. So we need to find our step angle, which is the angle in between here. So we can go ahead and do law of cosines. Take our stride, square that, since that's opposite our angle. Put my angle here with its opposite side. Now, all we have to do is put in our adjacent sides, and then we just have to work backwards to be able to go ahead and solve this. So remember, you want to go ahead and put these two together, work out this here with your cosine by it. So when you type that in, 2.43 squared is 5.4756 equal your 1.8 squared plus your 1.8 squared is 6.48. Minus 2 times 1.8 times 1.8 is also 6.48 cosine of your angle. Now remember, the second one, 6.48, is attached to your cosine, so you can't put the two numbers together. So you got to get rid of this, so subtract this from both sides. And you get negative 1.0044 is equal to that negative 6.48 cosine of your angle. Get rid of that number in front, divide both sides. When you do that, you get 0.1550 is equal to the cosine of your angle. Then do your cosine inverse. When you do your cosine inverse of both sides, you get 81.1 for your step angle.